Welcome back to the Grand Solar Minimum channel. Today is Monday, October 25th. Good to be back with everyone. Hope everyone had a great weekend. Let's get into some space weather news first. Our solar wind speeds coming in at 336.3 kilometers per second with a density of 8.4. Checking out our sun, we do have a couple of sunspots. Those are all located in the southern part of our star. Let me go ahead and move this up because they are in the very southern spot of our sun right now. Actually, two that is on the very far eastern limb is 2888, and then we have 2887, which is the very bright, very southernest sunspot region, and solar activity is low. However, continued development of a strangely magnetized sunspot, AR2887, suggests that solar flares might be in the offing. NOAA forecasters say there's a 10% chance of M-class flares here in the next 24 hours. So even though we have seen a lot of quiet from our star here for the past several days, now we're starting to see a little bit of action picking up here in the southern part. And also I want to point out too, if you guys check out in the northern part here, you can see where there is a huge, well not a huge, but there was a filament release of some kind here. You'll watch it pop up right here. Watch the corona on the outside. There it is. So we do have an active sunspot region that is coming around the bend right now as we speak. But right now we're dealing with 3 sunspots with a total of sunspot number of 46. So not a huge number of sunspots today on 3 of them, but still 46 is pretty moderate, and that's about where we are right now in this minimum cycle, or the solar cycle. We are at the minimum part, heading out of it into the what we call the solar max, which right now we're still far away from that. Cosmic radiation rates, though, coming in at 9.1%. That's 9.1%, down about 0.1% over the last 48 hours, folks. We're supposed to be increasing from a solar minimum, and right now we are looking at cosmic radiation rates still in solar minimum conditions. So 9.1%, we are fluxed, and I'll tell you about why that's important today as well. KP indice is coming in at a 1 with a 24-hour max of a 2, and our TCI coming in at 6.82. That went up a little bit from last week at 6.51. Again, things when we see more solar wind, when we see more CMEs ionizing the ionosphere, heating it up, it will raise the upper atmosphere temperatures. And that's what it's doing right now, just slightly though, not very far ahead or anything like that. We're not talking about anything that's increasingly hot. This is still considered a cold number at 6.82. And I want to announce also that 60 days without sunspots this year in 2021. That's only 20% of the year so far. So very low number when it comes to spotless days. But however, the last time we came out of a solar minimum back in 2010, we only had 51 spotless days. So we're already seeing more spotless days in this solar cycle 25 than we did in solar cycle 24 coming out of the minimum. So I thought that was worth mentioning. However, what happens during grand solar minimums, right? We get a lot of questions about that all the time. And I always refer people to John L. Casey's book, Upheaval. It's for sale right now on Amazon. It's a very good book. Mara and I both are reading it. Actually, I'm reading it for the second time. Some of that information that I read the first time wasn't so clear, but after doing this for so many years now, things are starting to come back and have that aha moment as we speak. But what does happen with solar minimums and grand solar minimums? Some of the things that we like to talk about on this channel that deal with grand solar minimum is some of the weather events and some of the seismic events. Now first, let's go into the hail. The hail's a big deal. And usually during these solar minimums, we see larger rain events, larger snow events, hail at record size, and so on. Giant hailstones pummeled Queensland, likely the largest seen in Australia records since they began. Now, this happened on October 18th. This is old news, but I'm just sharing what we are to expect during grand solar minimums. And right now we see on the 18th and 19th, we had severe thunderstorms that hit parts of Queensland. Heck, I'm pretty sure we had a tornado out in this area as well. But folks, we're talking about hail. Now listen, the world record is 9.29 inches, and that was back in 2018 in Argentina. Mind you, 2018 was right before we hit our peak of the solar minimum. So what did we see in Australia? 6.29 inches. Still very impressive considering that we're coming out of a solar minimum and heading in to a solar max. But still, nonetheless, that's pretty big hailstones. And here is what 6.26 inches approximately looks like. Now, again, why am I saying that this comes in the territory of solar minimums and not just grand solar minimums? We talked about it right before we started looking at these articles, and that is the cosmic radiation dosage rate, 9.1%, which is still very high, and we are fluxed right now. So with all that cosmic radiation in the atmosphere, and it's not really going away, it's still continuing to enter Earth's atmosphere and cause lots of trouble with our weather systems and stuff like this. So when you talk about heading into a max, I mean, it's going to be 2022 here anytime soon. Solar minimum was 2019, 2020. So we're getting closer to the maximum. But is our magnetosphere strengthening at all? If we're seeing cosmic radiation dosage rates this high, and we're still seeing hail over 5 inches in diameter. Normal hail on a large scale sometimes is between 2.5 and 3.5 inches in diameter. That's usually a big hailstone. That's something to talk about. But when you're talking about 6.26 inches in diameter, that's pretty big, folks. Kind of reminds you a little bit, not quite, but the movie The Day After Tomorrow when the ice chunks fell in Japan. We're not seeing anything like that at this time. But it is something definitely to watch, especially when we've dealt with tornadoes in this area that's not usual, and then you see this large hail. Hail is usually associated with tornadoes as well, but this is monster size, okay? So we've got the hail aspect of this, and we'll get back. Well, actually, let's go ahead and cover the weather part of this as well, and then we'll get to the next part. First, here's another weather-related type issue that happens with lots of cosmic radiation in the atmosphere. West Coast is slammed by record-breaking bomb cyclone. Now, usually we hear these record-breaking bomb cyclones taking place across the Northeast, right? And what is a bomb cyclone? A bomb cyclone is when a storm system loses 1 millibar per hour. So basically dropping 24 millibars in an hour or less. Right now, that's what we're seeing over in the West Coast. And boy, if you guys watch football, last night was a doozy of a game as they were continuing to get pummeled with rain. Now, I have friends out there that would rather play in the snow than this kind of miserable rainfall here. But what I can tell you right now, folks, is that we have seen some all-time records being broke right now. And I'll get to that totals here just in a bit. But we're seeing the results of what happens when we get too much rain too fast. A couple things we have to watch out for. One is the dams overflowing and failing, and two, landslides, especially across Northern California. So that's occurring right now as we speak, and we're not done yet. But speaking of the football game last night, downtown San Francisco recorded 4.02 inches of rain, making it the wettest October day on record for the city. Not just for this year or for the 2000s or the 1980s. This is an all-time record for San Francisco. Again, this is where the game took place last night. The old record was at 2.48. 2.48 inches is a lot of rain still, folks. Okay? 4.02 inches of rain for one city is usually the amount that some folks see in just a year. So to have all this happening in 24 hours is amazing. Sacramento measured about 5.44 inches, and that record has been broken from 1880. Also, a couple other areas nearby, Sacramento Executive Airport also tallied in about 5.4 inches, beating their record of a 24-hour record of 3.77. That was set back in 1962. 82% of that is the year's total rainfall, folks. Can you believe that? So we have seen lots of rain continuing to fall here, and they're not done yet. In fact, we're going to see more rain on the way. It could be some areas could receive up to 18 inches of rain in the next 24 to 48 hours, a total could see 20 inches in some areas, folks. Dams won't be overflowing just yet. That's right, Scrappy Cat, because we have had a bit of a drought this year. So this rain is definitely appreciated and it definitely needed. But at the same time, when you have this much rain falling, you're going to run into problems such as landslides, flooding, flash flooding, structures being damaged or destroyed completely. In fact, we're watching these scarred areas from these forest fires because that's where we're going to see the majority of these landslides as well. So there's kind of a double danger going on here when you have so much rain falling in these burn areas, landslides, flooding. It's a mess. Again, why are we seeing so much rain? Well, there's an atmospheric river, is what they call it, that is hitting the West Coast as we speak. Now, atmospheric rivers are not uncommon. We've seen quite a bit of them. In fact, we've actually seen atmospheric rivers, really the bulk during the minimum. And I know that term is probably, in my mind, relatively new just in the past few years. Again, the collection of cosmic radiation in our atmosphere combined with particulates and water vapor already in the atmosphere. Think of the cosmic radiation as small magnets that intensify the precipitation. And that's what's happening right now. There's a good line of moisture that's moving in from the Pacific into the West Coast, and it does not look like it's going to stop anytime soon. Again, another example of what cosmic rays can do to the Earth. While we're talking about rain, let's go over to the East Coast. We're getting floods on the west. Now we're getting floods in the east. And I can tell you right now, Mari and I live in the northeastern section of the United States, and we are scheduled to get about 4.5 inches of rain in the area. Now, thankfully, we're a little bit north of all the main stuff, but still, lots of rain to get through here. And this storm has been categorized as a nor'easter since it will be spreading northeasterly winds along the coast and is the first such storm of the season to impact the region. The nor'easter is expected to quickly strengthen as it moves along the eastern seaboard, but is expected to lose forward speed and become stationary off the northeast coast late tonight. So that spells trouble for coastal regions such as New York City, Jersey, parts of Boston. We're going to see some heavy rain totals and more than likely coastal flooding. In fact, Joe Bastardi feels like that this storm system is going to be a little bit more potent than Henri, which we remember Henri, the hurricane that was a hurricane for a little bit and then made landfall as a tropical storm. Nonetheless, 2 to 4 feet of storm surge is possible in the dark green shaded areas. Watch out in Boston, New York City, and other parts of Rhode Island, Providence, and of course Connecticut is included in that. New Jersey, definitely expecting some heavy rain, but not the heaviest. As you see in the dark green is where we could expect the most precipitation to fall here on the northeast. Now, this is an early storm, by the way, for nor'easters, but here's where it becomes stationary on Tuesday. Moves up just a little bit in parts of upstate New York and Vermont and New Hampshire. Most of Massachusetts will see heavier rain. Not as heavy as what we see today, but still, more rain is expected. And right behind it, you guessed it, a cold front. We are at that time of the year, folks. It's late October. It's been a mild month so far. And mild is appropriate. I mean, it's been a great month weather-wise. The concern I have with such a warm fall so far is that when we do get the cold weather, it really smacks us all at once. And man, for what we're looking at on forecasts across the globe, we could see early snow in November and some really serious cold by December before Christmas. So stay tuned. They are calling for a colder winter and snowier winter in the northern part of the United States, Northeast, the Great Lakes, the northern plain states, across Montana, and of course the Northwest, Oregon, Washington, Northern California. Don't forget, folks out there in Colorado across the Corn Belt also will see its usual winter storms, but we could see much colder air dipping farther south this year like we saw last year as well. So far we've covered hail and heavy amounts of precipitation, right? Those are the two things that cosmic radiation contributes to when it comes to our climate. Now, what does cosmic radiation do to seismic activity? Because that's another connection that we feel that is there between the sun and seismic action. Well, here, let's take a look. Some of this is old, so bear with me. This happened on the 20th of October. Japan's largest volcano went off. Nothing major, nothing crazy, but this is the oldest volcano and the largest largest volcano in Japan. It only had an ash plume of about 11,500, but still, you guys can see this picture. It's a pretty big ash plume. It's very wide, very thick ash plume column that is reaching the sky there. Still, lots to talk about when it comes to volcanic activity. And what we're seeing right now is typical grand solar minimum or even solar minimum conditions. But considering since we've been out of the minimum now for almost 2 years, we're still seeing minimum conditions with volcanoes going off like this. And of course, after that one, we had a high-level eruption at Manum, which was at 55,000. They've actually dropped that down a little bit. It was 50,000. So 50,000 was this ash plume. 55,000 feet and higher is when we start to see changes in the regional climate. Now, Mount Tambora, if you recall, back in 1815, blew up to about 122,000 feet and created in 1816 in the Northeast the year without a summer. So yes, volcanoes can cause cooling if we have enough ash plume interfering between the sun and Earth's surface. And we've already talked about cloud coverage and how that reflects TSI back into space, which sucks away warmth from the sun. Now, with this being said, is this big enough to put us in a cold summer next year? Absolutely not. However, it's still worth looking at considering the fact that, again, we are out of a solar minimum and we are still seeing solar minimum-like conditions happening across the globe with our precipitation, happening with our seismic activity, and then, of course, on the 23rd of October, we have had a not very large, but Etna erupting again, 24,000 feet ash plume. Etna has been very active for the past couple of years. So just in the past 4 days, from October 20th through the 23rd, that's 3 days, we've seen 3 big volcanoes go off. Japan was weak, Manum was kind of strong, and Etna was a meh. However, this again is contributed to the fact that we are flux right now with tons of cosmic radiation, highly charged particles in the atmosphere that actually penetrate the surface and go straight to the core. And that is why we're seeing all this magma rising up out of these volcanoes. These highly charged particles are definitely heating the core up as we speak. Let's not forget about the La Palma volcano that is still erupting. We're almost approaching 40 days now of that particular volcano going off. So very interesting situation we have right now with 4 different volcanoes that are active right now that are putting off some impressive emissions. When we talk about emissions, we talk about CO2, we talk about SO2. And folks, really the debate about CO2 and SO2 and everything that causes climate change, that debate's going to be had on a different platform. And this is going to kind of lead me into what I want to talk about today with the future of our network here. But the talk that we're doing today is showing you the effects from the sun and how its low solar activity can impact us here on Earth when it comes to weather, when it comes to seismic activity. Climate talks like this that I'm going to have about CO2 and the others, well, right now we're going to keep that on the Patreon channel. However, I do want to announce the upcoming future for the Grand Solar Minimum channel. And it's not just the Grand Solar Minimum, folks. As you may know, most of you have followed us for quite some time. Mari originally came from WTF Sky. WTF Sky was a great content channel full of astronomy, complexities, really everything in between. UFOs, space, you name it. Mari covers it all. In my opinion, Mari's channel was one of the reasons that pulled hundreds, if not thousands of people out of that Nibiru wormhole, okay? This channel is now going to be utilized. In fact, it's going to become a network. And I want everybody to go over to WTFsky.org and let's check out what Mari has been working on. Folks, she is going to put everything together for us in one site. So, what does this mean? Well, first we have Grand Solar Minimum News, which if you click on that, it will take you straight over to the Grand Solar Minimum, our website here for education on solar cycles, education on climate and seismic activity, and other resources as well. And it gets better, folks. This is awesome stuff. It's not done yet, but we're getting there. Then we go to I Love CO2. This website, I Love CO2, this is going to be where Mari and I will do the education of CO2. And this is not about attacking anybody. This is not about going after certain people or AGW. This website is going to be the pure education of what CO2 does to our climate and how we benefit from CO2. So we're going to teach the real story about CO2 on this website. Also, there will be, that's right, YouTube videos coming as well. That's not all. We've also decided to start a news media as well called Middleman News. This news channel will be nothing but unbiased news reporting. We will show you what's going on around the world without any commentary, without any opinions, without any negativity. This website is going to be designed, and YouTube channel is going to be designed to present you the news in a sense where it doesn't make your stomach turn. How many times have you guys turned it on CNN or Fox or MSNBC? And even the folks that support these channels, even sometimes some of your newscasters get a little cringy. That's not going to happen with Middleman News. We want to provide the information without bias so that everyone will be able to, let's say, vet the news in the way that it should be vetted. Bear with me, folks. I want to show also WTF Sky New. Oh, that's not ready yet. Sorry about that. Mari is getting that. This is all getting worked out as we speak. Now, I wanted to show you guys really quick too, because Mari has also improved this website with the groups, and here I am already not navigating this. Yeah, oh, check out our groups. What's the groups, you say? If I can get it to work. I can't. I'm butchering it, Mari. I'm so sorry. I'm so butchering this. I apologize. Well, I will figure this out when it gets ready, and I apologize. Maybe Mario will run up here and help me find it. But I don't know how many of you remember the social media part of our GSM webpage. Remember that? Remember the social media part of our GSM where you could post on our website and use it like Facebook? Well, that's going to happen here. Once we get this build out, it says check out our groups. You'll be able to go to the WTF Sky group. You'll be able to go to the Middleman News group. And by the way, we do have Twitter and YouTube channels set up for all of these. Here is the Middleman News on YouTube. No content yet. Mari says here we are going to, I got to be logged in. Understood. Thank you. So once you're logged in, and I'm not going to do that online. Okay, Mari's giving me some great information. I probably should have asked before we started, but thank you, Mari, as always. So what we do here, guys, you'll see at the top of the page, free to register. You sign into the website, and then it allows you to access the groups. And what I mean by the groups, it is the social media stuff. Like Facebook, you post your articles on your wall, and your friends react to it and comment. That is what we're going to do, but we're breaking it down into 3 different categories. I think at least 4. One's going to be for GSM, one's going to be for CO2, and one is going to be for WTF Sky as well. So it is 3. Middleman News doesn't really need the social media part of this because we've got Twitter for that. If you want to comment or talk about stuff that we have posted here on our Middleman News, just come over to our Twitter page and check out what's going on. Again, folks, I am not going to cover one side or the other. I'm going to cover it all. I'm going to cover the news that matters to everybody, not just a few people out there. And then, of course, we have a channel for the CO2 on Twitter as well as YouTube. I love CO2. Guys, we will leave all of these. There is 4 groups. Okay, thank you, Mari. So there will be links. Mari will probably fire off some links here in a second to the YouTube channels. I'll also copy these links and put them into our description page for this video as well. But we're not totally ready to launch these yet, but I'm so excited. And Mari, Mari gets on me about previewing these things before they're ready. But I'm so excited of what is coming to the future of WTF Sky Network. And that's what we are. We're the WTF Sky Network. We cover Grand Solar Minimum, Middleman News, WTF Sky, which is comedy, science, space, you name it, weird, we've got it. WTF Sky. That's going to be back, and I think a lot of us are going to be really excited. Mari has a lot of exciting things that are in store for us for this particular channel. And then, of course, the I Love CO2. I Love CO2, in my opinion, is going to be that website that breaks through to a lot of people out there who are confused about how CO2 works in our environment and how the warming happens or doesn't happen. And we'll break all that down. Also, one thing I want to point out about the I Love CO2 website is Mari is brilliant, first of all. But in the I Love CO2 website, Mari is going to have templates to write your congressmen and your senators. And you can discuss with them properly about the benefits of CO2, about why we need to take a deeper look at CO2 before we make policy, because I don't think our lawmakers quite understand. And the best way to get through to our lawmakers without being censored is calmly approaching it with formal letters and just a level head. It's all about balance, folks. That's what Mari has created. Mari has created a way for us to become more balanced with what we do with our lives. Not just on GSM, but our news, everything. So I'm super excited about the future coming up. I'm sure I've missed a few things, and I think Mari and I are going to plan a future show together where we will go over the websites one at a time. It'll be like a special show, and she'll walk us through and give us a tutorial of how these websites work. But folks, iloveko2.com. That's ILUVCO2.com. And then, of course, we will have Middleman News, which right now we have the YouTube and a Twitter page for, as Mari is continuing to work on websites and social groups. And then, of course, the I Love CO2 Twitter page and the I Love CO2 YouTube page. And then, of course, Mari coming back at you hardcore. We loved this channel back in the day. In fact, this is where Mari and I fell in love. I hate to be all mushy on you, but we created a Christmas album that talked about Nibiru, and I believe that this is probably what Mari and I, when we started doing things like this, just being a goof, I think we realized that her and I made a pretty good team and decided to start moving forward with other things as well. So, guys, I can't tell you how excited I am about the future. Hopefully by November 1st, we can start the full launch of all of these networks and all these platforms. But stay tuned. More updates will be coming soon on these websites when they're done. But for now, if you guys really want to know, bookmark WTFsky.org to find all these great channels. GSM News, I Love CO2, Middleman News, and WTF Sky. Also, we will have the social media groups, which you have to sign up for, register. Again, there's nothing paying for this right there at this time, as far as I know there isn't. But like I said, all you have to do is register. You will be able to log into these groups and post like you would on Facebook or Twitter to each individual topic that you want to cover. All right, let's quickly go over the weather forecast real quick. And right now we've got not one, not two, but 3 possible nor'easters that could be hitting the northeast in the next 3 to 4 weeks. I usually don't like to elaborate on long-term forecasts from GFS, but I had to say something because it does look like that we are going to see some pretty decent systems here in the next few days, along with colder weather on the way. Now, of course, we've got this system out here in the west that is just pouring in rain as we speak. And this has got snow once again, the higher elevations across Wyoming, parts of Idaho, and parts of Utah as well. But right now we're watching this storm system that is just churning off the East Coast. That is also going to bring us some heavy rains and floods. So let's fast forward here to Wednesday. That was Tuesday, to be honest with you folks. And we start to see that system starting to move away from the northeast, but another low pressure system moving across the United States, affecting the Ohio Valley. Look at how it's forming as it approaches the northeast. That's right, this low is spinning like a potential part 2 on Halloween. Unfortunately, New York City, Boston, Connecticut, Rhode Island, sorry, we may have part 2 of this in the next 6 to 7 days. The cold front right behind it, bringing in colder air across the northern plains, Montana, Dakotas, Minnesota, Wisconsin, and then eventually the Great Lakes will also see this colder weather by November 2nd. Lots of snow up above us in Canada, still some flakes here across Colorado and parts of western Kansas. Nothing major. Some high pressure, though, will dominate by next Tuesday and should dry us out for a little bit. However, that's brief as we start to see more moisture moving into the northeast by the 3rd of November. And check out this cold front just hanging around, not moving. That's right, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, watch out. You could see some snow showers by the 3rd of November. Also, southern parts of New York and parts of the upstate of New York could see some snowflakes too. November 3rd, a little bit more widespread snow is possible for Colorado and once again, western Kansas, and high pressure really settling over the plain states, the Great Plains, the Northern Plains, the Ohio region, and of course the Northeast. Snow hanging around for a few days in Colorado, and then before high pressure still just kind of hanging out, but this low pressure system here behind it, this could be system number 3. And then of course more snow and rain for the Sierras in California by the second week or the first week of November. So really, lots of moisture up here, and of course, Northern California. San Francisco, as we just spoke about, you've already seen the wettest October on record. We're going to get a good start for November here in the next few days. So let's move forward a little bit more as that system begins to head towards the northeast. Now, that system actually does dissipate because there's so much high pressure, which is drier air, more cold air coming to the northeast. But watch the system here and look out, another potential soaker for the northwest as well. So we move into the 7th of November, and there it explodes. That's the system I was talking about. This is system number 3 that could be another nor'easter potentially. It explodes across Texas and most of Oklahoma and will continue to move east on what GFS thinks 2 Sundays from now. I know that's way far out, but we got to watch this one because look at all the moisture that we're getting. Parts of Missouri, Arkansas, and Louisiana, eastern Texas, and this is a big one, folks. If this thing holds together, this could be a pretty impactful storm. Thankfully, we don't have temperatures that are that cold yet to support for the snow. That's okay with me right now. We got plenty of time for snow, but look at how much rain we could see in North Carolina, parts of Virginia, just by November 10th. Again, I usually don't like to use these forecasts that far out, but this is something worth looking at because I do believe that GFS is trying to signal us we're about to see some rocky weather start up here in the very, very near future. So let's take a look at temperatures since we know what the precipitation is going to look like. That little bit of warmth is gone after today, and I'm talking about the northeastern parts, Ohio, northeast, the plain states. Look at how much chillier we are as a country by Wednesday, October 27th, folks. Fall is definitely here, 50s for most of us every day, and of course you got 30s and 20s for the highs in the higher elevations of Montana, Idaho, parts of Wyoming, and Colorado in the Rockies. 18 degrees, in fact, for some of these states for high temperatures. These are daytime highs on October 28th. So as we move through the end of October, things stay relatively cool for the Northeast and most of the country, but then a big blast of cold air coming in on Halloween in the Northeast. And boy, watch out. This is the first sign, that first flash of colder air starting to filtrate the United States. That warmer weather is being kept strictly to the south. Look at all the 20s and 30s dominating by November 4th. That's why we're possibly going to see some wet snowflakes flying around in parts of the northern plain states, Great Lakes, and the Northeast by the first week of November. And then we start to see things level out a little bit. Not quite as cold as we move further into November, but we start the month of November pretty chilly. And then even the daytime highs, if you look, folks, we're not going to be out of the 40s and 50s. This is a widespread cool-off here. It's not just in the northern parts of the United States. This is going to be a widespread cool down here for most of us in the United States. So we got a lot of weather to look at. We got cooling temperatures on the way. And on top of that, if that wasn't enough for you, checking out the conditions right now, La Nina, folks, we are at a negative 0.19. Let's zoom that in. My goodness, look at that. We're almost a full degree below baseline right now, and we haven't even started winter. Folks, this could be a very strong La Nina if this continues. This trend right now, in my opinion, looks a little bit stronger than what we saw last year. I could be a little off on that. However, we need to pay close attention here. So the weather is getting crazy. The precipitation is getting crazy. The seismic activity is getting crazy. And we're not even in the thick of a grand solar minimum, folks. We're at the very, very tip of the iceberg. No pun included there. All right, guys, that's going to do it for me today on this Grand Solar Minimum News Update. We hope you got something out of this video. Please share and like and subscribe to all the channels that we suggested, okay? Go to WTFsky.org. Get signed up on our social media network. That way you can stay in the loop on all your weather, all your news, and all your information, scientific talks about CO2 and what we the people can do about changing policy on CO2. Until next time, folks, everyone be safe out there, and we'll talk soon.
Do you like this show? Give us a thumbs up. Want to support us more? Share to your favorite social media platform, buy a t-shirt, or become a Patreon. All links are in the description below.